Okay, I've just literally put the lens back on, just resting on top in its position at the moment, because we've got to place our halo lights, which I'll send you the link to them, which I bought on eBay. One obviously will sit on in there, obviously when I get it, I'll go into more detail in a bit, and the other one will sit on the outside of the light here, which obviously that will go, the wires will go through there. So as you can see, that's what I'm aiming for on the lights, and I'll show you how to fasten them now and wire them up next stage. But that would be pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. You can see these little knobbles, because they don't sit exactly in the middle, it sort of moves around a little bit, not quite sitting on top. I've managed to cut these off. You have to be very careful. Again, these are plastic, as you know, so there's still some left in there, so I'm just going to snip the end there. Oop. And that'll, as you can see there, that sort of just works itself off, and do that to all three of them. So when I finally wire this, I'm going to use some sort of like picture hanging wire, really. It's silver, so it fades into the chrome housing. But for this one, I don't want the wires running all the way down to the headlight. Yet again, I want to get it away from the heat, but also away from eye's view. So as you can see with this, we turn it over. There's a little latch there, and let's take that bit off. Being very careful again. Prise it out. That comes out, and then we're going to feed the wires through that to hide them. But yet again, positioning them in a way that we can run the wires along the bottom here to go into the so we can feed that behind to run to go to the side light, because I want to wire these up to the side lights. So having the wire down there most probably is the best length or stretch to get to that position, which would be good. So how I'm going to wrap the wires around the halo, just using a normal solder iron, and as you see, to get the wires across, there's a big lip there, but the there you go, just one little hole on that side. Let that cool down, and then we can trim that off a little bit. Let's use a blade. Trim the excess off that. You can see it's a little hole I've melted with the solder iron, and that's where the wire is going to go through to secure the halo light. So I've done the first one, so just to show you, I've cut a little bit of the picture hanging wire. I don't know, it's about 6 inches in length, something like that. And as you see, I've melted a hole, I've wrapped the wire around it, and now I've made another little hole down there. I'm going to put the wire through there. I'm going to wrap that, and you spin it at the back so you can, lost it, so equal lengths, just to make sure it's nice and tight. Pull it tight and wrap it. A good 8 to 10 times. Make sure it's nice. You've got a nice little spiral of wire. And when you've done that, just checking the position, which is about right. It could go a bit tighter, so I'm going to spin it round a bit, get a bit tighter, reel it in a bit so there's no rattling. It doesn't rattle around inside. So as you can see there, you can't really see it as well when the lights and lens is on as well. It's in a good position there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's good. And then cut the excess off at the back. Give it plenty left though, and tuck it down so it's not rubbing against anything. And that's out the way. Making sure here again your wires are heading down, then this lens can go back on then. So this is where we're at now. We've secured that. That can go in there. I think that's the right way, is it? No, it's the other way around. That goes in there. Let's put it down, be easier. So that goes in there, and that clicks back in there. Get the wires out the way. That'd be a good idea. Lift it out the way, and that's it. So that's the end product on that first one. On this one, before we set any lights, we can see the best way to hide the cable on this one and to keep it away from the heat is most probably to position it there, so the wires run straight down and out the way. I thought of putting it through there and bringing it around, but then this would be a lot easier to hide the wires straight down. And as you can see that, so the wires will go straight down. Where can you see? There you can see it. Straight down and out, but also keeping away from the heat displacement sort of ring there. So that's what we're going to do. So you can see what I'm doing with the solder iron on this one. I've made a hole literally on there, ready to go through, and then directly opposite I'm going to put a wire in there. You can see that's melted straight away, and yet again I'll trim that up with a Stanley when it's dried off a bit, and then we will feed the wires through, and then we'll another 5-6 inches worth of cable, and through the holes that you've just melted in the side there, feed the wires through, pin it up, and then of course we're going to put the wires down the bottom here. Remember to make sure the wires are in the right place to feed them straight out the bottom where they're hidden. And yet again, nice and tight on this. You don't want this moving around too much, obviously, so you want it nice and firm. Yet again, a nice twist, plenty of twists, make sure it doesn't work loose, but also you can trim this down in a bit. There you go. That's quite strong. And yeah, I think that needs to be a little bit tighter. Just give it a little bit more. Obviously nothing to crack anything, you've got to be very careful what you do. That's nice and tight now, that's not moving around. So what we're going to do with that, we're going to move that wire, move that wire around. Ooh, that's interesting. So again, another 4 or 5 inches of wire, slightly bent as you say here to get it through the hole and up through the heat displacement. And same again with this one. you want it nice and tight to the lens, to the side, sorry. So about 8 to 10 twists at least. Build it a little bit higher, because we're going to tighten that up a bit, make sure it doesn't move. And yet again, say twist it a little bit more. Make sure it's nice and tight, so this was not going to move in the lens when you're going over bumpy roads, etc. And that's solid. Yeah, that's not going nowhere. And you've got the gap, nice gap, away from that heat displacement. And so I'm just going to trim that off now. There you go, to there. Then what I'm going to do is, because that's a bit unsightly, I'm going to move that wire around, push it down behind, and make sure it's not touching the heat plate. Make sure it's tucked underneath, away from the heat plate. So we've got a nice solid structure. That's not going nowhere. Superb. Happy with that. So with the two halos in place now, we're going to fit the plate. No wiring done yet, but fit the plate back. As you can see on this end here, these hooks have to be underneath, and it'll fall into place nicely. The hooks are still in there, yeah. There you go, they've sat in nice there. As you can see, the hooks are behind those trims. Everything's in place, and now we're going to put the 3 screws back in that was holding this lens in. Oh, no. Well, we would do if it was lined up nicely. Oh, there it is. So that's, oh, we're not lined up yet, obviously. Ah, there you go. You have to lift it up a little bit. Make sure you get the thread right. To say this is plastic, so it has to be right. You'll be splitting the plastic otherwise. That's quite tight. Yep, tight enough. So we should have 3 of these screws, or bolts, whatever you want to call them. So once these are in, two, 3. Yeah, it's nice and solid. So you've got the wires now, which will run through to the electrical wires for the side lights. We'll show you that in a minute. So that's done. We can now put that together with the light. So let's, without doing the seal or anything yet, of course, we just want to make sure it sits in. Oh, the right way up would be good. Right, so that's how it's going to look. So now resting on there, everything is in place. We can do a bit of wiring, and this lens, as I said, can sit there while we put all the wires together. So for wiring them up, before you put the lens in, of course, before you put the lens in completely, just rested it up, and on the top of the light like that. And then as we go into wiring, then we're just going to use these press press connectors, and of course there's your side light, and red obviously to red, not obviously, but red to red. So I'm going to put the connector on first. There's one here with a blank end, so the red cable goes in the outside line like that. Oops, make sure it's in nicely and settled, because you only get one good chance at this. As you can see there, it's not quite going in. Could do it being opened out a little bit. There you go, sitting in nice, sitting in that channel nice. And what we're going to do with this then is to feed that. I've wrapped them together on the end to try and keep them together. As you can see, so that gets fed in there, all the way to the end, and then with the pliers, make sure the cable's all the way in, which they are, and press them together. That metal bit needs to be all the way to the end, so tight, tight. There you go. That's the red live cables done. Now for the white cables, so I've fed on it's on the outside track there of the press connector, and same again. Big fingers don't help with this. Feed that in all the way. Oh, something's stopping that going in. Oh, there it is. It's got in all the way to the end, making sure it doesn't move. And then again, pressing them in, making sure they're both, yeah, nice and tight. And that clips over like that, so they press over, and there you got a wired up. And we'll do a little test in a minute, but I'll see if I can get a live to that now to test them. Bit dark, but I haven't plugged any of the lights in yet, as you can see, but I just want to test it before we go any further. And you can see that plugs in there, back in. You hear that click, it's gone back in. So let's see if it's working. Yep, those two and those two. That's brilliant. Happy with that. In preparation to put the lens back on and feed it all back together. Sit it in position. Oh, actually, yeah, that's all right. That's in position. So obviously there's a couple of things to line up, apart from the seam all the way around. As you can see on here, there's a little circular stud to go on there. It sort of ensures the right position. And then as you go around, as you can see, the gap is quite immense at the moment. It will press in so far. As you can see, it goes in so far. But as you can remember, feed that side in first, because on the end here, this is flat and this will need to be fed into the light this way. You need a bit of force. This is not hot yet, obviously, so I just want to get in as much as I can initially, because once you start heating it up, it slides in nice. There you go. That's a good start. Now we'll start heating it up to push it all back together. Ooh, nice and warm. As you can see, yet again coming together nicely. So, yet again another clip. That's nice and sealed over there. Another clip on there. cold and nice. See what I say, when it goes cold, that's when it's absolutely solid. Solid bond. That's it. That's a good stick. It's a good seal all the way around. Happy with that. You can see there's no gaps there now as such, and it's still a bit warm, but you can see it's pretty good seal on that. Not much of a gap there at all. Nice and tight all the way around. Really happy. Oh, tested, sealed. Now the light's ready to go back on. It's the last one. Took about an hour and a half for each light. Just take your time. It's no hurry. You don't want to damage it. And you got a couple of halo lights. DIY for £17.